Sports Professor Rick Horrow in the boardroom beyond the scoreboard. Super Bowl 53, a relatively warm Atlanta, Georgia. I'd want to suggest that because if I said anything less than like 60 degrees, the guys would jump all over me today. And the good thing, by the way, before we even start with Brett Daniels, who is the one in charge of all this basically, is Super Bowl were played a year ago or a year today in Minneapolis. The temperature on kickoff would have been 46 below, I think, wind chill, 27 below. So Brett Daniels, who basically does all this for Atlanta, how does that make you feel?
Feel nice and warm, that's for sure. About 100-degree difference here.
Clearly. So give us a snapshot as we're heading toward the game and what's going to be run afterward. What the job is and how you feel about the job, and kind of give us a review of the last few months too.
Sure. Yeah, our job here is kind of to be the middleman between the NFL and the city of Atlanta, just to make sure all those puzzle pieces get fit into our city. We get everything up and running, make the connections, the introductions, and then a lot of troubleshooting, solving problems as they pop up, as they come along. I think we've got a very unique campus here in the downtown area in Atlanta with the number of hotel rooms, the venues. We pretty much have everything right here on the Congress Center campus next to the stadium, the arena, and the park. So everybody comes down into one tight spot and can do everything, stay on foot and walk around everywhere.
And it'll all play out over time. We'll absolutely see that. The bottom line, though, is that you've got a lot of assets that a lot of other communities find very difficult to do. The Minneapolises of the world, there are a lot of cities, but everybody understands just one downtown. Same as yours. New Orleans, same thing. Exactly. How much of an advantage is that?
I think it's a huge advantage. When you look at hosting the game multiple times, I think any city can get in the rotation to host a game. You get a new stadium like we saw in Minnesota. Right. The NFL is going to reward that community with the game. But I think to be in a regular rotation, you have to have the infrastructure of a city like Atlanta. You mentioned New Orleans, where everything is in a nice compact area. We've got the hotel rooms, you've got that infrastructure, transportation to get people around, so that it is a nice seamless event for everybody.
Let's talk about the business of your world first, then we'll talk about rotation versus one-off. I know that's what everybody talks about. So the NFL has, because it has the leverage to do it, imposed some pretty rigorous financial requirements on every widget company that wants to win a successful bid in the community. More onerous than it has been in the past, but at least now you know how you're dealing with it and what you need to do. Comment on that process a little bit.
Yeah, you know going in what the financial implications of hosting this game are. We're looking at a budget in the neighborhood of $40 million to put this game on and meet the bid obligations that we have as a city of Atlanta here. That can vary from city to city based on a number of different things. But going in what your capabilities are from a sponsorship standpoint. There are categories that the NFL has locked down, and there's certain things you can and can't do within that. And then you rely on your local business community, and we've been very fortunate here in Atlanta. We've got a lot of large committed companies that are willing to contribute and give back to the community to support an event like this.
Well, and you also, the key civic guy happens to own the team and be involved in the stadium as well. It's an obvious question, but maybe people don't understand how critical a well-respected Arthur Blank type owner is to this whole process.
It is critical. I mean, this is the one vote that the NFL has, one of two votes. I think the other one is voting on the hiring of a commissioner. That's a secret ballot. And so the owners don't know who's voting for which site, which city. They just go in and they know what the bid is like. And so having an owner like Arthur Blank, pulling that all together is a key piece of that. And that someone that the other 31 NFL owners know they can trust. And when they hand him the game, they're handing him, there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that.
Delicate balance, and I assume you need to be politically astute as far as hurting local cats, understanding what it means to provide the support for ownership and stadium, and also dealing with the vagaries of individual NFL owners. Do they pay you enough?
I don't know anybody ever thinks they get paid enough, do they? But
trust me, none of you guys do.
Yeah, right. But it is definitely a very much a public-private partnership. You hear that a lot around stadiums, around sports events, but it definitely takes the buy-in from the city and the state. We've got great partners, City of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. They see the economic impact an event like this can bring to the community, and not just the direct spend over the course of this week, but also the exposure and the visibility. You're getting CEOs and a lot of business leaders to come to Atlanta.
So people may not understand what happens with the $40 million budget, but there is a return. We talk about the balance sheet issue, but how about the economic impact issue, the pieces that are hard to quantify? Talk a little bit about what the general return is to the region over time.
Sure. We've estimated a direct economic impact of approximately $185 to $190 million. But I think the impact we look for with something like the Super Bowl is even larger than that. When the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia kind of take it all in, it's also getting the business leaders and the executives in the corporate world to come into our city and spend a number of days here. They're not just here for a meeting. They're here to experience. They're getting to see the lifestyle. They're getting to see how they can move around in the community. And hopefully that leads to more business. People coming back here to expand their companies, to put offices in here, to move their headquarters here. So those are some of the benefits that kind of the intangibles that you really can't directly attribute to, but can lead to that kind of stuff.
Intangibles that almost drive the equation, and mayors that we've talked to and others who respond positively to the whole Super Bowl experience say it's the easiest to explain but the hardest to quantify. So politically difficult to sell. How does that $40 billion translate into that? I mean, what's the drill? How do you do it?
Well, I think some of it comes, some of it's faith on the bid process. But once you get awarded that game, you're able to take your civic leaders to the future sites. So they go to Houston, they go to Minneapolis. They see what the event is really like, and they can then understand the impact and just how big the scope and the scale of something like the Super Bowl really is.
Your infrastructure issues, then we'll talk about competition generally. You have a structure that will transcend this one game? Is it a leap behind that'll allow you to bid on future Final Fours and other major conventions? How is this Super Bowl organization structured in the long term?
We're a division of our Sports Council. So the Sports Council here from the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce lives on long after this game is over. Our host committee kind of ramps up for this one event. We'll kind of disband. A few people will stick around to host the Final Four in 2020 here. Right. But no, it's just a collection of Atlanta people that wanted to help be a part of putting on a great game.
Now, I came from a good friend, Rodney Barreto, who has done this 3 times in Miami, and he's parlayed this into a career, which is kind of interesting. But clearly, one of the big issues is you will do great, and everything will be good, and we're airing this next week, so absent some cataclysm, everything is fantastic. How do you turn the momentum and excitement into a discussion of regular rotation?
I think that's the NFL takes that and looks at the experience that they have here in the community. They've kind of modified the bid process now, so it's not a bunch of cities bidding year after year. They're really kind of sitting down with 1 or 2 cities at a time and talking through future years. I think we're at a spot now with the NFL too. There are more and more cities that are capable of hosting this multiple times. Southern cities, new cities coming online. New stadiums coming online in California that'll really expand that. So I think a regular rotation is maybe once every 10 years. It's not something you're going to get in any market every 5 years or so.
Yeah, so the realistic expectation and the community is kind of prepared for not possibly being every other year?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. But there are also so many of these great events now with the college football championship, the Final Four that you mentioned, and then obviously we have upcoming here in the next few years, World Cup and the Olympics coming to the United States. So those things will impact a lot of the same major cities as well.
What does it mean broadly to the event development industry, now put on your convention meeting planner hat, that Vegas is now going to be in the mix with a huge stadium, that obviously the City Champion Stadium to be renamed, but LA is in the mix as well. Yeah. So you put on some great events, but you also have a lot more competition.
Definitely do, and that's a big part of it. And I think that's why that rotation, that 10-year, that decade span that I mentioned is in play because of Los Angeles, because of Las Vegas. You've got dome stadiums down in Texas now between Houston and Dallas that picks up a couple as well.
So if there's one thing you learned from when you started and took on this responsibility that you had no idea would happen, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many things that are great about this relationship and about building this. I think might be one of the biggest ones is just the impact in the local community. You think about it and you deal a lot with the NFL, but how much of our time, how much of our focus was on Atlanta and the citizens and the residents of Atlanta and how we could include them in the game. Building our volunteer team of 10,000 people at Team ATL, impacting the community with school playground revitalizations and recycling drives, things of that nature, civil rights, social social justice program that we put in place. All of the different programs that have nothing to do with football, nothing to do with the Super Bowl, but are a way to tie the game into our local community.
Power of sports really important as well.
Yeah.
Is there a way to is there a way to institutionalize the power of sports, the civic donations, Habitat for Humanity, all of that back into the regular fabric of everyday life in Atlanta?
Yeah, that's the one thing. Even in the programs that we put together, we talked about using the Super Bowl as a platform. We're only here for 2 or 3 years, then we go away. But how do we use that platform in that short period of time to draw attention to a lot of those programs and a lot of those areas on the surface that can then bring people together and continue that, build the momentum that lives on long after the game.
Thank you very much.